Russian people did not have white guilt, why they did not give a rat's ass about Black Lives Matter, the gaze of a policeman that is ready to plant my head into the concrete and suffocate me due to the color of my skin. Hi, my name is Andy the Afrolev, an African living here in Moscow, Russia. And no, the title is not clickbait. Black Lives Matter made me pro-Russian. I moved to Russia a year ago, but the first time I came to Russia was 3 years ago as a tourist. As an African coming into Russia, my lens was gravitated towards the American way of thinking, the viewpoint. White guilt, Black Lives Matter, Black people need to be apologized to, and people should be apologetic for the atrocities in the past. And it made all good sense because there was also racism in my country. But as time progressed, this whole idea and notion that another race should apologize for the atrocities of other people who they have never met slightly became weird for me. But I just ate it up because this is the only viewpoint that I had. And it sounds counterproductive of me to say this, especially if you are viewing this from a country where Black Lives Matter was the norm and everything was usual on the internet when people would basically stand in front of their camera and apologize for being white. But I came to Russia and people were proud of who they were and who they are. And I really did some digging, and I was so confused why Russian people did not have white guilt, why they did not give a rat's ass about Black Lives Matter, etc. And the history is a simple place in which you can find why people think the way they think. Let's talk about the white guilt first. Russians did not enslave Africans. They never enslaved Africans. Russians did not take part in the transatlantic slave trade. They were never involved in this nationwide eradication of a whole race or using them to, profit off of the shoulders of their trauma. That was never a situation for Russia. So the whole idea of white guilt, as well as the George Floyd thing, it was something that people found quite odd. Because there's no police brutality towards Black people here in Russia. It's not as if I walk down the street and I am somehow accompanied by the gaze of a policeman that is ready to plant my head into the concrete and suffocate me due to the color of my skin. Russian people are the least complex individuals that you will ever meet. They welcome you into their country and they judge you based on your actions. There's always a predisposition that comes with being a foreigner from a country that is not your own. You always bring sort of the baggage or the ideas of what the global media portrays you as. But Russian people give you the benefit of the doubt. There's no policeman waiting outside my door ready to tackle me because I am somehow a threat to society due to the color of my skin. In fact, there are numerous policemen here that give me high fives and give me hugs and say, "Hey, bro." The dimension, the difference in which Black people are regarded here in Russia compared to Europe and America is quite staggering. Because there is no need basically to feel like you are unsafe because they do not have the same history as all of the nations that are complaining about Black people or perhaps have endured the sufferings which make people think in a specific way. And this is what bothers me as well, because us as Africans love to adopt the struggles of other individuals. The whole idea of us proceeding to take this movement of Black Lives Matter and masquerade it as our own is a very noble thing to do, but with the wrong scope. Because we all have individual differences when it comes to racism in our countries. There are different systematic buildups that are existing in the nations that we are from. And a lot of the African nations do not struggle with police brutality. This whole F the police thing is probably something I would say back home because of corruption and maybe slipping a dollar bill to the policeman to get out of a parking ticket or a parking fine. The idea of lumping us all together just because we are the same race, it never works out because we are also individuals. It is nice to combine and to have the same mindset and push forward and sort of create an atmosphere where everybody is succeeding, but we shouldn't lump ourselves in the same bracket just because something is happening in another country. Because everything that makes up our countries is completely different. We have our own history, we have our own way of thinking. And Russia is an example of that. There is no need for Russians to have white guilt. There's no need for Russians to promote Black Lives Matter. Black people are not prosecuted here for the color of the skin. They are not disadvantaged for specific jobs just because they are black. Russia, in fact, welcomes Africans into the country. They have done this for generations. The greatest poet of all time, Alexander Pushkin, is part African. Russia has never proceeded to make it harder to be black in a country that is not your own. And Russia didn't ship millions of Africans into Russia and make them become Russian, but at the same time drain them from their own political identity and tell them they can't vote. These are things that are Western, European. So this whole idea of trying to force a movement onto people is the reason why these things collapse. And it's the same with Africans. I'm talking to you as well. We have our own brand of racism in our countries, and we don't address them for what they are because we're too busy absorbing the mindset of other people and how their nations function, instead of dealing with the inner workings of our own countries and fixing it head on. All problems have a specific keynote to them. There's a way of dealing with them, and you can't just lump all of them together and make it one movement if you haven't addressed the problem at hand. In my country, there's a problem with racism when it comes to hierarchy. People are put in high positions just because of the color of their skin. Or perhaps there's nepotism for people that are not even from the country, placing their own relatives in high positions instead of allowing the locals to proceed to succeed. And the people in the country suffer because they feel like they are inferior. And this is probably the remnants of the slave trade, of course, or it's the remnants of all of the political unrest in the country. And this can be dealt with in a specific way, but I do not understand how we should also scream, defund the police, F the police. I'm not going to say F the police in Russia. Why would I say that? They keep me safe. Russia is pretty safe. Although it is a country that is in a conflict right now, it is pretty safe. I can walk outside of the door. I can walk out at 4 a.m. in the morning and not fear a knife stabbing or being shot in the head. I feel safe because the police are basically keeping the country safe. The nation is keeping itself safe. And you need the policemen to do this. I don't know about other nations, but I would never ask you to fund the Russian police, because that wouldn't make sense. And this is why I can comfortably say that I am pro-Russian in the way that they think. Because they do things that are suited to their nation. They love their country. And they solve problems based on the problems that arise in their country, not based on hype or a social media trend. They fix things based on the coexisting problems, and they solve them. There's no need to extract other ways of thinking or drag a different mindset into a nation when they are not facing the exact same traumas. That is why Russia is actually one of the best places to live as a black person, because you do not carry that same weight that you have to carry when you're in another country. You don't have to be like, oh my God, I'm black. I need to somehow suffer and everything is a lie and everybody's out to get me. Of course, you might find people that stare at you. Of course, you might find situations when you might face racism. I can't speak for everyone, you know? I can only speak from my experience. I have not experienced that, but other people might have. And Russia's the biggest country in the world. Heck, you might experience racism here. I can't speak for everyone else. I can't do that. I can only speak for myself. But I can comfortably say you will not feel like you are disadvantaged because of the color of your skin here. You will not feel like the police are out to kill you. In fact, you will have a chance to move. I don't know about other cities, but here in Moscow, nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit if you're black, white, Mexican, green, blue, purple. They just care if you're a decent human being. And perhaps there are other cities that this might not be the case. But that's left for us to explore on our own and to report on this channel. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe. It's been a while since I sat down and I broke down something like this. I've had a lot of things to do recently. But if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for joining. And as always, we are Roaring Truths to preserve your pretty voice. Ciao.